Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Park in the Chef's Spot. Prepare to go down in more ways than one. I was working as a dishwasher in a new fine dining restaurant in the downtown of a largish city. Chef Paul came from a rich family with a lot of connections, but he made his own way through culinary school and was both talented and dedicated to his art. His family ponied up the cash for a location right downtown in Office Tower Land, but Chef Paul made the place the hotspot for the movers and shakers of the town. Our clientele was the Rolex set, people with a string of initials on their business cards and high-powered job titles. Chef Paul was the nicest guy you could imagine away from the restaurant, but when he was on the cook line, he was an aggressive and abrupt bully of the old school. It was an open kitchen, meaning you could see it from the dining room, so he never raised his voice, but he could chew you out in a low-volume whisper, all the time with a poker smile frozen on his face. This was his show, his restaurant, his baby, and woe be it to the person who ducked up while Chef Paul had his game face on. As I mentioned, we were downtown, and right next door was a civic building that held many offices. Among them was a branch of social services, welfare. Obviously, we didn't get any trade from them, not with us serving $30 venison burgers. One day Chef had to scoot out after lunch rush to pick up a special ingredient for the night's dinner special. I forget what it was. I had finished off all the dishes from lunch and was emptying garbages and grabbing a smoke during the slow period. This is maybe 3:40, 3:45 in the afternoon. I see Chef pulling into the parking lot just as douchebag is exiting his car, parked right in Chef's spot, close to the back door. I have a ringside seat for this. I'm maybe 15 feet away, standing on the metal stairs. Chef tells him that spot is reserved, it's his spot, and douchebag will have to move his car. Douchebag goes off like a bomb. Chef Paul is mixed race, and the profanity and racist rant coming out of douchebag's mouth is appalling. By the end of it, douchebag throws Chef the finger and tells him to go and duck himself. I'm astonished that Chef doesn't retaliate, but I can tell he's steaming. He parks further down the lot, and I give him a hand carrying the boxes in. I was smart enough not to say a word, but I sure wasn't looking forward to working with Chef for the rest of the night. Now I mentioned that this was about 3:45, right? In this city, rush hour parking takes effect at 4 p.m. sharp, and tow truck drivers swoop in like vultures to hook any car parked on the street at 4:01 p.m. These trucks are parked and staged all over downtown. A city parking tow is a contract fee, but a private hook pays a lot more. I had left the back door open for some ventilation, and a few minutes after we carted the boxes in, I hear an unholy commotion out back. I go to have a look, and sure enough, douchebag's car has its end in the air, held up by a tow truck. Chef had called in the tow. Douchebag is now going off on the tow truck driver, who has a bored expression on his face because he's heard all this crap before. It's now just after 4 p.m., and the office workers are streaming out of the building next door, but douchebag doesn't notice. He's screaming at the tow truck driver that he has to have his car, right now, because he needs it for work in the morning. Well, that was a dumb thing to say. One of the office workers was heading over to check out the fuss, and it turns out this was the person douchebag was in the neighborhood to see. It was his welfare worker. Oh, did she get furious in a hurry? You lied to me, douchebag. You're not supposed to have a car. Or a job. So not only won't your check be ready tomorrow, but I'm sending your file for investigation. Douchebag follows her to her car, stammering BS excuses, but she's having none of it, gets in her vehicle, and drives away. Right behind her is the tow truck, pulling out douchebag's car. I head back inside, and it isn't long before I hear douchebag's voice again, only this time it's coming from the front of house. There are maybe 2 tables wrapping up a late lunch, and douchebag. He's over by the service counter and pitching another fit at Chef Paul. If he comes over the counter, douchebag is going to have a real bad time, because Chef has a long knife in each hand, held low where douchebag can't see them. Not only that, but every staff member is watching this, including me. Douchebag is screaming that he's going to kill Chef, he's going to find his family and kill them too, and then he's going to come back here and burn the place to the ground. Calls chef every name in the book. I mentioned that the clientele are pretty much the movers and shakers in town, right? Guys with high-power job titles? Well, one of the people at the two tables has one of these powerful job titles, and this job title is Chief of Police. Now if you or I call in to the cops about a disturbance, we might see a uniform in a while, but if the chief calls up and says he wants uniforms at a certain place right now, they get there right now. Douchebag is in full rant when 4 cops roll in. This shuts douchebag up in a hurry, as everyone can tell, douchebag included, that these cops are looking for him to make the slightest twitch so they can beat his butt silly. He meekly submits to the cuffs as the chief of police himself informs douchebag that he's under arrest for creating a disturbance and uttering threats. And the icing on the cake? As the uniforms are patting him down, one pulls out a baggie from douchebag's jacket. It contains what looks to me to be a green leafy substance. I left the restaurant before the case came up for court, but I do know that douchebag lost his car as he was jailed, and couldn't spring it from impound. It was a piece of crap anyway, and the fees were probably more than it was worth. I can't imagine that his chances were good, as it was known that the chief was planning to testify. Never a good thing to have that going against you in a courtroom. Next one is titled, Make Me Do All Your Work. Get life in prison. So this happened to me years ago, 1985. My mother worked for what was the first computer supply company in the USA in lovely Compton, California, the gang capital of the world at the time. She had heard they needed an order puller and I got the job. I hated this job right away because for some reason after busting my butt for 8+ hours a day, I'd go to sleep and dream I was still working, so I always felt tired. Most of the guys I worked with were good guys. One was a former Mexican mafia gang member, Victor, who gave up the life and really turned his life around. One day, they hired Gino. He was an Italian-American but wanted to be a Mexican gangbanger more than anything. He latched on to Victor after finding out about his past and was always asking about the gang lifestyle, and he was hoping that Victor could help him get into the gang. Victor told him about his life but refused to introduce him as he gave that up and didn't want to go back. Gino wasn't happy about this. One day, I started noticing Gino was finished working before all of us, and that for some reason, I was not finishing until way later than the others. I wasn't slacking or working slow, so I started to wonder why. Then one day, I saw Gino coming out of the warehouse manager's office area. It was just a desk between 2 partitions, acting strange when he noticed I saw him. We were given our stacks of orders for the day and I noticed that mine was double the size of Gino's. I figured out he must have been putting his orders in my stack before the manager gave them out but had no proof. The next day, I got there early and climbed up on one of the storage racks, you know the kind you see at Home Depot, above the desk where I couldn't be seen. The manager was inside the office getting coffee when I saw Gino go to his desk and slip half of his orders into my pile. I waited until he left and went inside to tell the manager. He came out and counted the orders and noticed I had many more than I should have, and Gino's were half of what he gave him. When we all got together to get our orders later, all of them had a few extra in them and Gino was gone. He got fired for what he did, but to make matters worse, he told Victor that he was coming back to kill me for reporting him, and Victor advised I leave because he knew he was serious and that Gino wanted to have something like a killing on his reputation for getting into a gang. I was furious at the manager for telling him I reported him, so I quit on the spot, but not before going inside to tell my mum what happened. She was good friends with the owner and told him about the incident, and he was so sorry it happened, and he promptly walked out into the warehouse and fired the manager for putting my life in danger by not being more discreet about who reported Gino. I heard later he threw me under the bus because he was afraid of Gino himself. Fast forward a few months and I had a better job working at a well-known amusement park. One night, the local Los Angeles channel had a special on gang violence that I watched. One segment was about an armed robbery in which 2 gang members robbed a convenience store, and the store video had the 2 gang members' faces clearly on the screen and there was sound also. They not only robbed the store, but the one gang member shot and killed the clerk for no reason. Guess who that gang member was? Gino. I recognized him by his face, tattoos, and voice. At the end, they said it was still unsolved and to call the LA County Sheriffs if there was any information. I called immediately and 2 detectives came by the next morning. A few weeks later, the detective called me to thank me because they not only arrested him but got the other guy too. Dumb-a-hole Gino even had the murder weapon on him when arrested. They contacted me a few months later to inform me that Gino and his friend both got life without parole. Don't bend over for that soap, Gino. Next one is titled, But the Line, Cause a Scene and Escalate the Problem. I'll stand up for myself. A little backstory: one day, my girl and I decided to go to a shopping mall to get some kitchen stuff, a spatula, a grater, etc., and buy ourselves city cards, basically a card that lets you use all of the city transit, buses, trams and subway. We chose a specific mall that had both a city transit office and a small IKEA. When we arrived at the queue to the office was massive, at least an hour of waiting, and so we decided that I'll wait in the line while my girl does the shopping. After half an hour, my girl comes back and we still have to wait at least another 30 minutes. 15 minutes later and we are fourth in line. Then entitled man, an average 40-something balding male, comes onto the scene. He notices the queue. I already knew he wasn't having it by the look on his face, and simply stands in front of assertive woman who is the first in the line. We had at least 1 meter long gaps between each other due to the pandemic, and he just stands there like it's nothing. The assertive woman calmly asks him to go to the end of line, to which he replied, I just have one thing I need to pick up, and it won't take longer than 5 minutes. A small argument between the two continued for a while, and it ended up with the lady gaining back her first spot in the line and entitled man occupying the second spot. Now, standing behind entitled man was Shy Man. He tried to get in front of entitled man but just couldn't do so. After entitled man started being aggressive, Shy Man backed out. Seeing that Shy Man was not able to stand his ground, I decided to give him a helping hand. I came close to entitled man and started a conversation that went somewhere along these lines: excuse me, sir, there is a line here, please respect others and move to the end of the line. No, it'll be 3 to 5 minutes and I'm gone, what do you not understand? Sir, do you not realize everyone in this line is waiting for a 5-minute service? I was standing here for 40 minutes and I doubt it will take longer than 5 minutes for me as well. I don't care, I've got crap to do. Then, he faces away from me, so I come right in front of his face. So, you just come here not giving a duck, waiting for an opportunity to skip the ducking line. Yes. Duck off. He faces away from me once again. At this point I knew the conversation was going nowhere, so I just stood in front of him, being the first in the line now. So now you are skipping too, you little idiot? I didn't reply and just waited for assertive woman to finish her business. When she finishes and leaves me, an entitled man literally raced to the counter. I won and said to the lady behind the counter, excuse me, this man is skipping the line and is generally disrespectful to others. Could you please not service him? The worker nods and asks who is next in the line, to which I point at Shy Man. Then I go back to my spot in line where my girl was standing. Entitled man tried his luck skipping the line once more. Thankfully, the worker knew what the right thing to do was and ignored entitled man like he wasn't even there. Entitled man realized his defeat, looked at me, and said, see you outside you little idiot, and gave me a middle finger. I won. It felt so good sending that guy home with nothing, but after a little while I realized he might be serious with the see you outside remark. I actually felt scared for a second, as a 177 centimeters, 75 kilograms guy, 5'10", 165 pounds for fellow Americans. I'm not much of a fighter, to say the least. Looking for a way to protect me and my girl, I went and bought a little pepper spray, legal to carry it without any permission where I live, as well as notified a guard that a man had told me he will be waiting for me outside, possibly to hurt me. I made my way to the exit with the guard following me, unlocked the pepper spray in my pocket. If entitled man really wanted to settle this, I was ready. I exited the building. The guard stayed inside but was watching me through the glass doors. Lo and behold, entitled man is standing around the corner, with his cap on, approaching me. I was so frightened that I couldn't think straight. With my right hand already grasping the pepper spray, I took it out and sprayed him. Entitled man started screaming in pain and tried to retreat. I yelled at my girl to stay away and then proceeded to spray some more for good measure, but this time I was spraying his hoodie so it didn't do much. The next thing I notice, the guard is tackling entitled man to the ground and calling for support over his walkie-talkie. He also ordered me to stay where I was. After what felt like an eternity, 3 other guards come out of the mall. 2 of them help strangle entitled man, who was refusing to forfeit, and one of them asks me to come with him. We were taken to the guard's office, and police was called. By that point entitled man had surrendered, he was sitting restrained in cuffs. The police arrived extremely quickly, less than 5 minutes, and questioned the guards, examining both my and entitled man's ID cards. They went on to review surveillance footage, came back and told me they would no longer need my assistance. One officer also warned me that if I'm threatened again I should call the police in the first place and that I'm not exactly allowed to pepper spray people who haven't even touched me. I agreed, thanked them, and left the room. I then called my girl because she was nowhere to be seen. It turns out she went to the toilet. As I was waiting for her, entitled man comes out of the guard's room, handcuffed, with 2 police officers grasping each of his arms and leading him outside. Oh man, did that sight put a smile on my face. I then went on with my day. Last one is titled, "Don't Stick to a Deal You Agreed To. I'll Expose Your Foul Behavior." This happened years ago at a pizza place where I used to work. I was a delivery driver for 6 years at various pizza places, picking up and moving on to greener pastures whenever it suited me. Granted, that only happened a couple of times because I am unfortunately a very loyal employee. To be honest, I should have done that before this whole thing ever even happened. The store I was at was part of a nationwide franchise, and the waters had gotten choppy. All of the managers quit at once and they just couldn't seem to get one to stick around. It got so bad that the area manager had to come in as acting GM and brought a manager from another store with him. These 2 are the main characters of this story. Well, besides me, obviously. For the purpose of this story, we'll call them Jeff and Kate and I'll just be me. Jeff was 45 and had been with the company for a long time before I started, worked himself up from the position of driver, all the way to being the one to oversee about 20 stores. He was actually married to another area manager. I got along okay with Jeff for the most part. On the other hand, Kate and I got on like a house on fire, both being ladies of a similar age. She often confided things in me that she would soon bite her in the butt, figuratively. I considered myself a decent employee as far as pizza slingers go, came to work on time, did all of the dishes, got along with everyone, and had the best delivery times. Because of this, I usually landed all the best shifts, including opening on Saturdays. If you've never worked a tip job, you know that shift is the most coveted out there. Working through both the lunch and dinner rush before going home is well worth having to get up earlier. That information is relevant to the story, trust me. You see, there are always 2 drivers who do that shift. One comes in earlier and leaves earlier, and I was the one who got to come in just before we flipped on the "open" sign and went home once the dinner rush began to die down. This is also relevant. The final vital bit of info you need for context is that my brother goes a bit wild at Christmas. His favorite thing to do is book an entire movie theater for everyone he knows to see a movie of his choice. This particular year was when The Last Jedi came out, and he is a Star Wars fanatic, so that was what we were going to see. Unfortunately, it would be at 6 on a Saturday, at least 2 hours before I would get off. At this point, Jeff and Kate had been with us for 3 months without managing to find suitable replacements, and I made an arrangement with the other opening driver to switch shifts because his ended right when I would need to leave to make the movie. I then cleared it with Jeff and he agreed to let me go at 5:30. I was all set, or so I thought. You see, that Saturday we started busy. Very busy. So busy that at 5:30, when I went to hand Jeff my slips, he had already dispatched me out on a double delivery. I took them but reminded him that I needed to leave when I got back. I just hoped the trailers were long enough that I didn't miss much of the beginning of the movie. I got back from my double and by that point, it was already 6 and the theater was 20 minutes away. I had to leave. Once again I went to hand my slips to Jeff, but he got in my face. "You leave when I say you can leave," he told me. "You're not going to let me?" I asked, incredulous that he was reneging on our deal. "I came in early. I did my time, damn it." He looked so very smug. "No." Well, I made a decision right then and there. there are so many pizza jobs out there that they needed me more than I needed them. I took my slip book, you know, the kind that you see in restaurants. I've found they're great for delivery because not only can you store all of your slips in them, but they're hard enough for customers to bear down on to sign. Anyway, I slapped that in his hand and said, "Fine then." I quit. It was his turn to look incredulous. After making sure I meant it, he checked me out and I left the store fuming. I missed the entire opening of my movie. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no, you remember how I said Kate would confide in me? She loved to tell me all about how often she and Jeff would meet at a hotel after work. She even horrified me by telling me Jeff would turn off the cameras so they could hook up in the back office when the store was empty, in a chair I had sat in multiple times. Kate was, even so, obliging to give insignificant details like the date and time this happened. So I put in an anonymous call to the franchise's HR and told them what to look for when it came to checking the tapes. I told them everything Kate had told me. But I still wasn't content with leaving it there. So I went to my local pizza place, that just happened to be in Jeff's wife's area. Remember when I said she was also an area manager, and I got to gossiping with the workers there while they made my pizza. I was well aware it would make it back to her. Food employees can't keep such juicy gossip to themselves. Jeff got demoted to store manager, then transferred to the same store in his wife's area I went to, so she could keep an eye on him. I guess it didn't work out because last I heard Jeff's wife divorced him and he no longer worked for that franchise. And none of that would have happened if he had just let me leave on time. Thanks for listening.